My name is John. I'm 30 years old. After graduating from college, I joined a major advertising company but quit after working for a while. The companies I worked for never suited me. I was never comfortable with colleagues who constantly wanted to assert dominance over work and relationships. I was always exhausted by work and I was labeled as someone who was uninterested and made a fool of. Hey, do you think you can finish on time working like that? Watching you dawdle around with that clueless look pisses me off. You're really at your own pace, huh? Hey, John, do you understand what I'm saying? They'd give me these condescending lectures like they were talking to a baby. Whenever I did something that didn't please them, it was the same story. So I was determined to quit someday and worked hard to gain the skills I needed to become independent. Finally, in my 5th year, I managed to quit and started working freelance. A year later, as I was earning quite well, I decided to travel the world using the savings I had accumulated since my student days. I always enjoyed saving money, and I was lucky enough to get a well-paying job because I worked hard on my studies, which was a stroke of good fortune. I didn't want to end my life only knowing America and the places I visited on my graduation trip. I wanted to know more about different people and ideas. I wanted to see, hear, and feel beautiful, never-before-seen landscapes and cultures. I wanted to absorb as many experiences as I could in America so that the bad things wouldn't bother me, and I wanted to change myself. Plus, I didn't want to work as a regular office worker in America, so after a bit of self-transformation through traveling abroad, I wanted to try a completely different job. For that, I need to change my shy and timid personality. It would be great not to be afraid of interacting with people. Anyway, if I don't change myself now, my life will stay as cloudy as the sky. I was completely fed up with reluctantly sitting in front of the computer, so I decided to take the plunge and go abroad. But after visiting 150 countries, I realized that, just as I had heard, America is the most convenient country. Also, the transportation system isn't as punctual as in America, and the more undeveloped the country, the more people travel in a very open manner. And most importantly, the scenery is completely different, and the beauty is so overwhelming that every day is filled with awe. All my experiences abroad were so dazzling that they gradually made my notion that socializing is a hassle fade away. Of course, if everyone is always doing separate things, there would be no point in going out together. Even so, if someone wanted to see a particular place, they could just say so and go see it freely. There weren't many people who would call that lonely or heartless. We didn't hold back too much and said what we wanted to do. A relationship where we weren't too clingy and could assert ourselves properly made me feel lighter. Thanks to this journey, I realized how tired I was of such behavioral norms. And by realizing that I couldn't conform to those values, I thought maybe I didn't have to keep struggling in a place that was hard for me. That realization was the first asset I gained from this trip. However, I did miss the convenience and beauty of America, perhaps because I was so used to it. Even though I had been traveling around for a few years, I couldn't imagine living abroad permanently. In countries with less sanitary conditions, I would sometimes get sick from food sold at street stalls or the drinking water, and I concluded that living in my home country was the best. Besides, I had a place I wanted to work when I returned to America. Leaving America made me realize how liberating it was. I thought that if I stayed here, I could live a healthy life both physically and mentally. But after traveling around the world for about 3 years, I decided to return home. Today, I came back to America for the first time in a while. Seeing the scenery of American people bustling about, so different from foreign airports, I felt relieved and thought, I'm back. Despite thinking that America was suffocating, I realized I wasn't tough enough to keep living abroad. Feeling the gentle air of America after a long time, I rolled my suitcase along. I'm home. When I unlocked the door of my apartment and entered the room, it felt like it smelled different even though it was supposed to be my room. Maybe because while I was traveling, there was always someone at the accommodations to chat and eat with. My room, which I entered after a long time, was quiet. The place felt like it was just for being there, with a certain inorganic quality, and it made me feel a bit lonely. Well, it has been 3 years since I came back here. I did not want to feel strongly lonely, so I dropped my luggage a bit hard and started unpacking busily. As I took out the items that had traveled with me from my bag one by one, I reaffirmed that I was glad I chose to do what I wanted rather than stay at that company, endure, date, marry, and raise children like everyone else. When I was at my previous company, I never thought I would leave America and travel for such a long time. Looking back now, it was completely on impulse, as my feelings of frustration had reached their limit, and I almost ran away to America. From there, it was a series of hardships. I somehow managed to overcome those difficulties and am back here now. As originally planned, I think my values and way of thinking have changed quite a bit. Just the fact that I was able to quit that job, which used to slowly drain my energy just by being there, and become independent is significant. And thanks to saving up money, I was able to leave the country and live as I pleased. Even now, there are many people in America who continue to work in unpleasant jobs, enduring it all. Though there were tough times, I'm glad I was able to walk the path I wanted to some extent. After this journey, I became able to accept my life, which might be considered a bit unusual. By the way, the colleagues who kept making snide remarks to me have since been disliked by everyone, gradually losing their place, and now seem to be working in a pretty uncomfortable environment. Indeed, what goes around comes around, I thought when I heard this story from a former colleague. After that, I earned my living by getting work through various methods. One day, I decided to call a place I had been curious about for a long time. It was a hotel known for great spa service, and I met this woman while traveling overseas during college had told me about, praising the nature, the good customer service of the hotel staff, and the spas. According to the woman, the service there was top-notch. The food and surrounding scenery were amazing, but there were very few guests, which she found a shame. After returning to America, I became very curious about this hotel and went to stay there right after coming back from abroad. The breathtaking view and the charming atmosphere of the hotel instantly blew away everything that had happened until then. I was deeply moved by the wonderful food and good customer service. Even though the location was hard to access, it was such an amazing hotel. I thought it would become extremely popular if only more people knew about it. I didn't know what I could do, but having traveled to many countries, I had often heard stories from people who loved visiting America but faced difficulties like this, so I hoped to use that experience. After traveling the world, I came to realize that I really adore America, and I talked over the phone about this to a person who seemed like the owner of this hotel named Amy. Eventually, she gave in to my enthusiasm and said, "All right, our business is quite tough right now, so we can only offer minimal pay, but if we get more guests in the future, we can improve that. Honestly, I don't know what you can do or how much, but if you're willing to start with some menial tasks, we can hire you." I was surprised at how smoothly it went and said, "Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you." After hearing about what to bring and the detailed dates, I hung up the phone. The hotel was a hidden gem deep in the mountains, with many captivating features that would make anyone a fan after one visit. How I can make it attractive, how much I could make the most of these features was the key, I thought. But once I arrived, I found there were many other challenges. "Are you John?" "Yes, that's right. Thank you for accepting me despite the sudden contact." "Oh no, we were actually in trouble because we didn't have enough Spanish-speaking staff, so this is a big help. Welcome." Despite my sudden contact asking for a job, the Amy welcomed me warmly. The Amy, elegantly dressed in a light dress, was quite a beauty, which startled me a bit, but she didn't have the stiff, formal vibe of a high-class hotel owner. Instead, she had a kind and gentle demeanor. She had perfectly shaped lips and an overall flawless face. The pale-colored dress she wore only enhanced her beauty, which was like that of wisteria flowers. While being captivated by her graceful posture and elegant walking style, I followed her down the old wooden hallway as she explained the hotel to me. This hotel, though an old establishment, was meticulously maintained and very clean despite its age. The first places she showed me were the guest rooms, the kitchen, and the washing area. Next, she led me to the hotel's pride and joy, the spa bath. Opening the old wooden sliding door, I saw the bath filled to the brim with unique colored spa water. As I looked at it, feeling nostalgic and thinking it hasn't changed, she explained the benefits of the spa, unaware that I had been here before. She said, Since today is just a day to teach you some basic tasks, you can move in from today. Later, please experience the spa yourself so you can explain its benefits to the guests. Then, she introduced me to a few of the other staff members. They taught me the flow of tasks like making bed, the manner of serving food, having a break in between, and finally, cleaning the bath. Once I had learned the basics and the locations of things, my tasks for the day were done. Good job. You can head back to your room now. You'll start working tomorrow, she said, leaving me feeling a bit deflated. However, looking at the hotel's atmosphere, I understood. During the tour, I hardly saw any guests. It was clear at a glance that this hotel was likely in decline compared to the old days, as the woman who recommended this place had mentioned. But after soaking in the spa for a while, I realized, oh, it feels like my stiff body has loosened up. Having spent so much time looking at my computer and smartphone back at my apartment, I felt my body relax significantly, strengthening my resolve to revive this hotel somehow. From the next day, I started working alongside the staff members. Fortunately, having worked at a business hotel during my student days, though the job was quite different, I wasn't too surprised by the physical demands of lifting heavy objects, speed, and stamina. The staff, who had assumed I had only done office work before, said, "John, have you worked in this industry before?" Or, "John, you're quick and precise. You're a great help." Although it was true that I had matched the needs of this place and asked Amy to hire me upon our first meeting, I felt relieved that I could be useful beyond just my language skills. However, after clearing away lunch, finishing the designated cleaning and preparations for the evening, and about to take a break, I saw the Amy looking troubled as she stared at the desktop in the office-like room. "Oh, not again," she sighed, holding her head as she glared at the computer. As I entered the room to clock out, I noticed an email screen from a foreign traveler on the computer. Observing her for a while, I realized that while she could read Spanish, she wasn't fluent and seemed to struggle with many words, preferring to translate the entire sentences. Her problem isn't that she can't read Spanish, it's the content. In the past, I would have quickly judged that I couldn't help and silently clocked out, ignoring her struggles and leaving the scene. But now, I'm different. After graduating from college, I spent 3 years traveling to about 150 countries with the money I saved from working. During that time, the feelings of wanting to keep a low profile and worrying that my help might be more trouble than it's worth gradually faded away. This change was thanks to the many people I met during my travels who treated me warmly despite not knowing my name, and to those who showed me that the complicated relationships I experienced in America didn't exist everywhere. I received a lot of comfort and unconditional kindness from people of different nationalities and perspectives I met by chance. Each time, I felt my heart, which had become hardened during my student and corporate years, being healed. It was like, even though I wasn't very religious, I started to believe that everyone might be a god because of the overwhelming warmth and kindness I received. So, as I continued my travels, my desire to give back to someone in need grew stronger. Originally, I had wanted to work in the tourism industry, so when I heard that there was a need for help, I decided to work at this hotel. When someone is in trouble, I want to act immediately without thinking about whether there will be a return or not. I no longer had any doubts. Is everything okay?" The manager looked surprised when I suddenly spoke to her, but after a while, she seemed to remember the reason I had called about wanting to work here. This was the manager's problem. Due to a temporary decline in foreign tourists because of worsening conditions, the number of visitors had drastically decreased, but in recent years, they had gradually started to increase again. The hotel decided to target inbound tourism to boost revenue. To make the hotel known to foreign travelers, the manager listed the hotel on travel sites frequently used by foreigners. This led to a significant increase in inquiries, which was good, but unexpected problems arose. Some customers had to cancel or change their reservations. When canceling, a fee of 50% to 100% applied, depending on the number of days before the stay. However, some customers didn't understand this and demanded a full refund, and it was difficult to get their agreement. Even when processing refunds, coordination with credit card companies wasn't smooth, leading to forgotten refunds and constant trouble on the site. Amy gradually became overwhelmed with handling these issues. Even for customers who arrived without any problems, there were many who didn't fully understand explanations of our hotel staffs, didn't read the information board, or had diverse demands that couldn't be met. As a result, the hotel's reputation on review sites was terrible, and few regular America customers visited, putting the business in a dangerous situation. Even after working here for just one day, I could see how confusing it would be for foreign visitors and constantly thought about improvements like changing the interior a bit. When I mentioned this, an amazing miracle happened at the hotel. Before work started, I asked the manager if I could talk to her for a bit, and I called her into the office. Amy knew why I had come here, and she knew that if things continued as they were, this hotel would surely have to close. This hotel has been running since the time of the grandparents of the current owner, and even before that. Despite being in such a remote area, it has continued to thrive thanks to the customers who appreciate the value of this place. I don't want it to decline in my generation. Also, I don't want to blame the decrease in customers solely on the changing times. But Amy has no idea how to attract tourists from overseas. And when I worked with her for a day, I saw how much she cares about her guests. She pays great attention to every word and gesture to make them feel comfortable. However, just that kind of customer service is not enough anymore. To make her understand this, I decided to talk to Amy about the tendencies of foreign tourists. First, many affluent guests who choose such a prestigious hotel tend to stay for a long time with their families. Therefore, I suggested creating large family rooms so that they don't need to split into 2 rooms. Or, if possible, renovating the rooms so they can be connected. Also, having only a large public bath is not very popular, so I proposed making small bathrooms in each room where guests can enjoy spas. For guests staying more than 2 nights, having the same type of meals every day can be dull. Many people get tired of always eating the same American flavors. So, I suggested preparing clear and hearty menus like steak that guests enjoy and offering different dishes every day to keep them from getting bored. This hotel offers many dishes, and the food is excellent, but the flavors don't change much, and the menus are based on American food. Therefore, I thought it necessary to adapt the menu to better suit their tastes. Moreover, there are many people overseas who are vegan or have specific dietary restrictions. Without menus catering to these needs, we wouldn't meet the expectations of modern times. Limiting the nationalities of our guests would be a waste. Another common issue in old facilities is the lack of good internet access. We should check if amenities like hairdryers are weak or toothbrushes are hard to use. Most hotels assume guests bring their own clothes, so there's no laundry service, but if financially possible, offering such services or setting up laundry machines would be appreciated. Also, the lack of cashless payment options is quite inconvenient for foreign guests, so I suggested improving that too. For guests who don't often look at multilingual manuals, the staff should use gestures to explain how to use remote controllers and translation tablets. We should briefly explain the minimum necessary rules before they get annoyed. Moreover, we should create a detailed map with photos showing what facilities are nearby to make sightseeing easier. For the clothes that guests wear in the spa hotel, we should prepare various designs and colors, guide them to photo spots with beautiful scenery, and when the staff is available, offer to take pictures for them, which would be appreciated. The area around this hotel is beautiful with many places where the river and trees are colorful, so be sure to inform and guide guests about these places. Stock the nearby souvenir shops with local crafts and unique American souvenirs. For those who prefer to eat in the nearby town instead of the hotel, make sure there are restaurants with vegan or meat-free options available. Many visitors to America want to experience authentic American arts and crafts, so offering activities that allow guests to experience long-loved American cultures would make the hotel more attractive. Regarding the refund issues on the website, no matter how famous the site is now, its trust will gradually diminish. Therefore, change the advertising methods, such as using web ads, social media, and requesting to be featured in famous travel magazines. I presented all the ideas I could think of at once. The hostesses looked blank for a while and then said, I thought that if we put our hearts into providing what we think is good customer service to the guests in front of us, that sincerity would be conveyed. But what we think is good and what they think is good are often different, even down to the food, laundry service, and souvenirs. I realized that all your suggestions were quite valid. Due to budget constraints, we can do everything, but we can change things like the food right away, so we'll implement those immediately. Of course, it's difficult to build a new bathroom or renovate rooms suddenly. Therefore, we first decided to ask the townspeople to donate any new dresses they weren't using. I used my experience of meeting many people from overseas to suggest to the souvenir shop staff which dress designs and traditional accessories would be popular. I also asked the surrounding facilities to develop vegan menus and other options, as we have many guests with dietary restrictions. And finally, I asked some travel influencers I met during my travels if they could help promote the hotel. Among the friends I made during my travels were various influencers like photo-based SNS users, video streamers, and famous bloggers. Of course, their popularity varied, but they all loved traveling and had many connections with other travel enthusiasts. If they promoted the hotel, more people might think it's a good place to visit. The best way I could repay the hotel that had welcomed me so warmly was through marketing using the now large advertising platform of social media. Naturally, I stopped using the booking site that had frequent problems. I quickly created a website that clearly conveyed the charm and features of the hotel and planned to share its URL with those I asked to promote it. Now, let's see how effective this advertising will be. Although the hotel is top-notch in every aspect, its accessibility is poor, and it doesn't have the obvious tourist appeal of places like New York or San Francisco. But I think it's the perfect place for travelers looking to detox their hearts. And the target is the wealthy. If the hostess's grandfather saw the current interior of the hotel, he might faint. 5 days after I made various suggestions. That's how much the interior of the hotel had changed. As time passed, the internet ads and social media posts brought more and more reactions, and now, it's hard to believe how empty it was when I joined. We're now constantly receiving reservations from foreign tourists. Whereas before we were lucky to have 3 to 5 groups, now it's fully booked every day, and it's so hard to get a reservation that you need to book years in advance. This is because guests who visited once wanted to come back soon and reserved the hotel again for their next visit to the US. And the fact that repeat visitors have skyrocketed is a big deal too. MSA'd, since I took over this hotel, I've never seen so many guests. When I think about it, it's all things that seem obvious, like wanting to eat the local food, wear something with a touch of elegance, or not wanting to struggle with things in the room. I thought just being polite was enough and had stopped considering what guests really wanted. Even though I'm not that much older than John, my mindset was stuck in my grandparents' era. I had no idea if our service or local souvenirs would appeal to foreigners because I was always here. I'm really grateful that John came to help us. She thanked me repeatedly. However, I'm not good with these kinds of situations, so I just said, no, it's fine, I wanted to do this. I'm just glad the number of guests has increased. This staff didn't expect such a whirlwind of activity, with just a few changes. They had always worked with dedication, but now their faces are entirely different, filled with smiles and energy. Seeing them like this, I thought I was on the verge of going off the rails, back to a lonely, work-only life. But I'm glad I could do something, even if it was a small idea, to help someone. I'm happy my unusual experiences could be useful. If I had been satisfied with my big adventure and hadn't come to this hotel, who knows what would have happened? Maybe another savior would have come. Maybe Amy and the staff would have come up with some other plan. I don't think it had to be me, but thanks to friends I've made worldwide promoting the hotel, the financial troubles have nearly vanished, easing Amy's burden. And many more people have come to know the charm of this hotel. Now, I'm also in charge of teaching the staff to speak Spanish. Of course, we rely on tablets for guests who speak other languages. Still, the promotion, the hotel's improvements, and the enhancements to nearby facilities. Plus, I've acquired to be useful skills every day. I could find a way other than working at a company. I'd have all become my hope. And above all, seeing the guests' delighted smiles, and Amy and staff beaming faces, has become my reason to live. I've heard that living just for yourself can make you depressed. Being hired by this hotel, having my opinions heard, and supporting each other with everyone, I no longer have those constant dark thoughts of wanting to disappear or quit my job. And I think this also applies to raising children and having a family. Helping each other and being helped is what brightens our hearts. As I realized through this experience, Amy once said to me in passing, "You've really helped me a lot." I was so heartbroken about the idea of letting down my beloved grandparents by failing this hotel. I was always overwhelmed with anxiety. But then you came along, like a savior. Thank you so much for calling us back then. And even beyond that, you work so earnestly, and you are actually very approachable and comforting. I'm glad I met you. Let's keep working together. Seeing Amy's gentle smile and the staff's happy faces, I was reaffirmed in my desire to keep working here and protect these smiles.